So tell me, do you love yourself? Or does the whole notion of loving yourself make you feel uncomfortable? Many of us believe that loving ourselves is not only vain and selfish, but also weak. This is why so many of us actually use self-criticism as a motivating force to drive ourselves towards success, which is always a surefire way not to succeed. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. And this is because loving yourself simply means to fully accept, to trust, to honor, and to be at complete peace with yourself in each and every moment. In other words, to love and support yourself unconditionally, meaning no conditions attached. This doesn't mean that you have to like everything about yourself. Think about all of the people in your life, like your kids, your partner. They all have aspects which you don't like, but you still love them, right? It's about doing the same for yourself. It's about recognizing and seeing your perfection amongst your imperfections. And so in this way, loving yourself is about feeling empowered by bringing forward your wholeness in order to be the best you and live your best life. And this is why loving yourself is so very important, because well-being has more to do with your relationship with yourself, or the lack of it, more so than anything else. A huge part of which requires that you love and accept yourself for who you are in each and every moment. And that's because it's self-love that gives you emotional resilience and makes you really strong. It's self-love that allows you to feel worthy and gives you that unwavering confidence, allowing you to be the best you. This includes allowing yourself to dream and chase your dreams. It's self-love that provides you with the desire and long-term motivation to treat yourself, including your body, with the respect, love and attention that it deserves, as opposed to relying on external sources of motivation, which is fleeting. It's self-love that enables you to feel whole and complete instead of remaining eternally unsatisfied, as if something is always missing. And so the more you value and love yourself, the more you're able to make better choices and therefore create abundance in every area, including first and foremost your health, but also your relationships, your career, your finances, and your entire sense of meaning and purpose in life. In other words, loving yourself allows you to honor your truth and the worthiness of what you want. And so unless you really love yourself, then you will never achieve true success in life. And so, as you can see, loving yourself is integral to everything we do, including your ability to live a healthy and happy life. Now that you know why loving yourself is so important, I want to talk about how we can go about doing so. And so, when we're talking about loving ourselves, it should be clear that this has very little to do with anything external and everything to do with in yourself. That is, the love that we seek for ourselves must come from inside of ourselves and not from others. As such, to truly love and honor who we are, we need to work on ourselves. And there are primarily two main ways in which we can do this. And the first of these is through self-development work, which includes first and foremost remembering who you are. Very few of us love who we are because very few of us know who we really are. And so first and foremost, you need to get to know who you really are. So if I ask you this question now, who are you really? Can you even answer it? Try it. Hit pause now for a minute and try to answer it. So how did you go? Were you able to answer this question? Were you able to answer it with certainty? Because what I can tell you with 100% clarity is that unless you can answer this question, then you will never reach your full potential as a human being, as the full expression of who you are. And if you don't do that, then you'll never be able to love yourself unconditionally. And so when I ask this question, who am I? I'm not talking about the roles you play, your behaviors, your body, your possessions, your reputation, your religious beliefs, or anything else that constitutes your story, so to speak. Why? Because nothing that you can tell me about yourself is who you really are. So let me ask you this. If nothing from your past defines who you are today, then who are you? This is super important. So let me ask you that again, just in case you missed it. If nothing from your past defines who you are today, then who are you? Sure, this may sound crazy, because if you are none of these things, then who are you, right? I mean, there's not much left for you to identify with, especially if you can't identify with any of these things. And that's my point. All you have left to identify with is your own presence or consciousness itself. That's it. In other words, what I want you to realize is that you are of the same divine consciousness that created all things. That you are not separate from, but rather one with it, and all that constitutes life on this planet. That you are born from and are an extension of all that is. And as such, you are already perfect and whole just the way you are. And so when you know and live in alignment with who you are, then you automatically become plugged in and charged into this universal, unlimited and unconditional source of love. The truest, deepest, most permanent source of love there is. But if you don't know and live in alignment with who you are, then you remain separated from this unconditional source of love that is available to all living beings. And in substitution of it, you'll continue to base your self-worth as a person on other than transitory and fictitious-based forms which constitute your story, both of which leaves you feeling like you're never enough and leads to a lifelong struggle of loving and accepting who you are. Not only is remembering who you are essential for loving yourself unconditionally, it is the main purpose of life itself. Now, what I am saying to you is nothing more than a mental concept in your head. Instead, in order for you, for it to help you love yourself, you need to feel who you are. Something which comes with enough cognization of your very being and inner or self-development work, all of which does take time. And with enough inner work, you will discover a much deeper and more profound aspect of who you are. Another big part of this inner work is giving yourself permission to simply be yourself. Oscar Wilde once said, "Be yourself because everybody else is taken." And I just absolutely love this quote. Sometimes we are scared to be ourselves out of fear of not fitting in or being accepted by others. But the reality is that you don't need to be accepted by others. You just need to accept yourself. Not everyone will like you, and that's okay, because you don't like everyone either. If you are not okay with this, then you need to come to terms with that. Obviously, this can be very challenging if it comes from the people that we love the most, namely family and friends, as opposed to work colleagues or strangers. In fact, it's very often the people that we love the most that hurt us the most too. And this is because we are more inclined to believe them. And as such, it becomes easy to second guess yourself and ask, am I really a bad person? And yes, sure, you can always be a better person. We all can. But this is a process. And part of loving yourself is accepting all parts of yourself, your personality, your body, and everything else. Sure, you might not love everything about yourself. We all have things that we are disappointed with, or may want to change. But you need to embrace them as part of who you are. It's about being whole, not perfect, flaws and all. You know that you love yourself when, if you had a choice, you wouldn't be anyone else in the world but yourself. It's about bringing more of yourself to work, at play, in relationships and everywhere else. It's about giving yourself permission to be yourself 24/7. Being yourself is about understanding yourself, and with that, the true nature of everything. If you can succeed in letting go of your entire past and just allowing yourself to be who you are, then all of my other tips to loving yourself, which I'll just skim over now, will eventually happen as a natural progression. However, in the meantime, do them religiously. Okay, so the first of these is service. In order to fulfill the highest, truest expression of who you are, of yourself as a human being, you must find a way to serve. Martin Luther King said, "Not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great, because greatness is determined by service." And I just love this quote too. Service means using your occupation, your knowledge, your talents, your gifts, or whatever it is you produce as a way of giving back to the world. Or alternatively, it could be volunteering in your local community, or even simply offering your love and compassion to those who need it the most. Basically, anything that brings more love and light into the world. If I use myself as an example, I serve others through my online program, Holistic 360, where I help people from all walks of life, from all parts of the world, to achieve balance and live healthier and happier lives by focusing on 3 key areas. And you know what they are: what you chew, what you do, and living true. And so when you serve, not only do you make the world a better place, but doing so gives you a real intrinsic purpose to your life. When you begin to serve, you realize that you are actually here on earth on purpose, that it's not a mistake that you are here, and you begin to fall in love with the idea that you belong here. This makes you feel good every day about yourself, which also makes it much easier to love who you are, because you are living your life in alignment with who you really are and on purpose. And the more you begin to truly value who you are as a person, a being with many unique talents and abilities to contribute to the world, the stronger your self-worth becomes. Remember that in order to serve at your highest, you first have to honor yourself. Otherwise, you will have very little to give. Now, I said earlier that there are primarily 2 main ways in which we can work on ourselves in order to more fully love and honor who we are. Now, the second of these is through the all-important practice of self-compassion. Now, there are lots of ways to practice self-compassion. And so self-compassion in many respects is about not being so hard on yourself. And there are numerous ways that we can do this, including to stop comparing yourself and your achievements to others. You know, so often in life we criticize ourselves for what we have or haven't done, whilst at the same time even forgetting about all of the things we are good at and which we have achieved in life. And a big part of this often comes from comparing ourselves to others, which we shouldn't do. This includes letting go of society's expectations, including keeping up with the Joneses. Remember that your journey is yours and yours alone. Yes, others may have or have done this or that, but that's their journey, not yours. Everything that you have or haven't gone through up until now at this point is as it should be. As long as you are doing your best in everything that you do, then you can't do anything more than that. Self-love should have nothing to do with what you have or haven't achieved. Instead, it should come from the fact that you're a human being, intrinsically worthy of respect, full stop. Next is don't be a control freak. In many ways, this is similar to the previous point. And with life only getting busier, many of us are finding it hard to keep up. Obviously, the constant sense of pressure from society to be it all, do it all, have it all, doesn't help with many of us left feeling as if we are failing in our roles as parents, as partners, as friends, and even as people. In short, sometimes we feel we are losing control. Accepting that you are not in control of your life is something which most of us don't like to admit, especially when we live in a world that warrants control of your body, including your weight, your career, your relationships, your children, your finances, and everything else in between. Not being in control is very damaging to your ego, reputation, and how you define yourself, including your self-worth. So what often happens is that we set the bar too high for ourselves, believing that failure is not often an option, and then we keep pushing on and criticizing ourselves. If you can relate to this, then shift your goalposts a little, okay? Remember that you cannot control everything in life, and nor should you. Instead, learn to control the things that you can control and let go of the things that you can't. Next, forgive yourself and others. Many of us often hold on to feelings of self-hatred, guilt, anger, and other negative emotions associated to the past events and attachments. However, it is these very things which take away from being whole and loving both ourselves and others fully. Therefore, it is absolutely essential to forgive everyone, including yourself, for anything which may have happened in the past. And remember that forgiveness is not a feeling you passively wait for and to come over you, but rather a conscious choice that you need to make so that you can move on with your life. Next, be and know that you are a good person. Many of us believe that we are not worthy of love, often because we have an underlying belief that through some wrong life choices, we are or have been a bad person. And whatever the reason, it's totally irrelevant. At the end of the day, you have two choices. The first is to remain a victim and keep telling yourself that you are not a good person, which will make it impossible for you to love yourself, meaning you will never have peace and happiness in your life. Or the second is to remember what I said earlier, that nothing that you can tell me about yourself or that you have done is who you are. Sure, you may have made some bad choices in the past, but so what? The Creator forgives all things. You just need to forgive yourself, because playing small won't help you or anyone else. Instead, from this moment, moving forward, just focus on being a good person, because if your intent is always good and you genuinely are a good person, then you'll have nothing on your conscience and nothing to worry about. Okay, so next, speak kindly to yourself, or quiet your inner critic. I say this because if you have a voice in your head that tells you that you suck, then chances are that someone else put it there, and it usually occurs during the early formative years. Regardless of how it got there, if we don't see this for what it is, self-hatred, which has been unconsciously passed down, then we can actually see it as normal. And this is the nasty, harsh, belittling, you're worthless, you're bad, you're no good type of criticism. This language may sound extreme, but if you were to actually write it down, especially on a bad day, some of the things you say to yourself, you would be surprised at both how nasty and how frequent it really can be. Next, don't personalize anything. This step is all about having strong spiritual armor, otherwise known as emotional resilience, and not being so sensitive. We often get hurt when we personalize things such as negative comments, situations, or actions from others. Having a sensitive nature can make you feel stupid, worthless, and weak. In fact, sometimes even a single comment can scar us for a lifetime and cause us to experience depression, anxiety, and panic attacks. What we need to realize is that none of these things should ever be taken personally. When you know and live true to who you are, then very little of what people say or do will affect you. In other words, you no longer personalize anything. It's like water off a duck's back. Next, love your body. Okay? Many of us use our body shape to not only define who we are, but also as a primary way to define our self-esteem. Women especially. Given the fact that most of us are not in shape, it's very easy to see why so few of us love who we are. If this is the case, what I want you to do is look deeper and realize that your body is a temple of your soul, meaning that it houses the very essence of who you are, your true self. Without your body, you wouldn't even exist. And for this reason, we need to love it. We need to take care of it. Next is to create a self-care plan. Self-love must first start with self-care. So make the time to look after yourself and be well. This includes things like doing regular exercise, practicing mindfulness, getting a good night's sleep, and everything else in between. Got a bit of rain going on here. Next, love yourself as the Creator loves you. Evidence shows that life is not just random, but rather that there is some higher, benevolent, and unknown source at work. Call it what you will, God, source, or anything else. I want you to know that God loves you and accepts you for who you are. Nothing you can do or don't do can displease God, because God loves you unconditionally. The only way I can explain this specific kind of love is that it is somewhat similar to the love that you have for your children. And it is a love that is freely available to all of us when we go inside and connect with it. In fact, the most loving, divine, and fulfilling relationship that you can ever have is in your life is with your connection with the internal source that always was and always will be. And this is a source that is inside of you. Next, surround yourself with people who support and uplift you. This is really important that we do this, because the company that you keep will have a big influence on how you see yourself. I'm just going to stand here and keep recording. The more you let others treat you badly, the more likely you are to let yourself be treated in the same way. Life is already hard enough without having others make it harder for you. And it's way too precious to spend time and energy on people who suck us dry. We have to do it and enjoy it with people that we love. So never let anyone make you feel unworthy, because you are magnificent and worthy beyond belief. And so remember, self-development and self-compassion really are the keys to loving yourself unconditionally. Loving and being kind to yourself is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Sure, it's not easy, but if you do all these things that I just spoke about, I promise you that you will get there. Okay, so now that you understand how to love yourself, let's find out how much you love yourself, and I'll get out of this rain. So, do you love yourself? If you're still having trouble answering this question, then just remember that to love yourself means to fully accept, to trust, to honor, and to be at complete peace with yourself in each and every moment. To love yourself unconditionally means just that, to love and support yourself without any conditions attached. This doesn't mean that you have to like everything about yourself. Think about all of the people in your life, like your kids, your partner. You know, they have aspects which you don't like, but you still love them. It's about doing the same for yourself. It's about recognizing and seeing your perfection amongst your imperfections. In this way, loving yourself is about feeling empowered by bringing forward your wholeness in order to be the best you and live your best life.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to learn more about the other essential attributes of staying in your best shape. And until next time, watch what you chew, do what you need to do, and always live true.